My name is Benjamin Kennedy.
And my name is Lucas Sparger. And our topic is how does being a certain gender affect your views on gender neutral words? And today we're going to be talking about how people perceive gender neutral words and how it affects our society and other societies by asking students at MHS a question.
Whether people assume that a certain gender can't do a certain thing based on its gender, such as like a woman not being able to be a plumber and like doctors not being able to be women, or like men not being able to be fashion stylists, things like that, it really just leads to one thing, and it's just assumptions that hurt the society more than it helps. And in times, it can even cause pain or danger to somebody. Like for instance, a woman named Takesha was on a plane, and a man in front of her started to get night terrors, and because of that, he went unresponsive, and a flight attendant called out for a doctor. And when Takesha stood up, he said, "Oh no, honey, we're not talking to anybody right now. You can sit down. We're looking for a real doctor." And basically, she started looking around for a man doctor instead of just allowing Takesha to help, which was certified as a physician and also a pharmacist. So basically, because of her ignorance, she actually almost caused that man more pain than he had to go through because there was a doctor right there. And that just shows how society is and how it believes that genders can only do certain things, that they're limited in options.
So today we're going to be asking students at MHS the question: a boy is in a car crash with his father. The father does not survive and the boy is rushed to the operating room. The doctor is his son and says, "I cannot operate on this person. This is my son." And the correct, most plausible answer to this question is that it's the boy's mother, of course. But most people are going to think that the boy has a stepfather or has a second dad, which is kind of a representation of how society brainwashes us to almost kind of put a stigma on sorts of gender neutral words. And this is our first interview right here.
The boy's in the car and he's with his dad. They get in a car accident and the dad dies. They take the boy to the hospital and the doctor says that they can't work on their child. Why is this possible?
Uh, is it because it's his stepfather?
What's your answer?
Yeah, stepfather, second father.
No, it's because it's his mother.
Oh, that makes sense. Oh shoot.
Alright.
All right, so as you can see, we had one black male and one white male answer the question at the same times, and they both had the same ideology that a woman was impossible in that situation, that it had to be either a male who was the boy's father, second father, or a stepfather of some sorts. And that just goes to show how society raises uh, people to believe, like even at a young age like that, to just believe that male should be a doctor, and that there was no possible way in that situation that there could be a female doctor, which was the most plausible answer.
All right, so for our second and third interview, we decided to do two females, but this time we are going to separate them. And our first interview is going to be with a white MHS female student.
All right, so a son and a dad are in the car and they get in a car accident. The dad dies. So the ambulance takes the son to the hospital to be worked on. And the doctor says that I can't work on this patient because it's my son. How is this possible?
It's probably like the son's second dad, and he doesn't have.
It's not correct because it's his mom working on him.
So for our second and third interview, we decided to split up the two students so that they wouldn't try and mix ideas and collab and see if we could try and get some different answers than what we got from the first interview. But as you guys saw, she ended up giving the exact same response as the people from the first interview. And this just goes to show the ideology that uh, males and females see the they have the same perspective on gender neutral words, and that just because they're a specific gender, they are not seeing uh, gender neutral words from a different point of view.
All right, so this is the intro to our third interview and final interview. All right, so the son is in the car with his dad, right? And they get in a car accident. So the ambulance takes the son to the hospital. And at the hospital, the doctor says that this is my son. I can't work on this person. Why is that possible?
I think it's because
stepdad.
So after seeing the final interview, you can tell that the ideology still holds, and that every single person answered with the same answer, believing that the dad had one or another dad or had a stepdad of some sorts, which shows that no matter what gender, you still view certain gender neutral words the same, which is because of how society raises us and makes us perceive things.
In the end, we ended up interviewing 10 different people, even though we only showed three different interviews. And we interviewed five males and five females, and everyone answered them incorrectly, with the same answer being either a stepdad or a second father.
All right, so out of the interviews we showed, obviously as you could tell, 4 out of 4 of the people said that the doctor was the doctor could only be either like some type of male figure, like either a dad or a stepdad, and that just goes to show and prove that our ideology was in a way incorrect, in that our question overall was, does gender affect the way people view gender neutral words? And this shows that no matter what gender you are, you always associate, for some reason here in America, people are associating the words, certain dominant words, with males instead of females. And we thought that maybe if we showed females, that they would be more likely to, believe that maybe there was a possibility that the doctor was a female. But no, in fact, all of the females that we interviewed all said the same thing. And the first time I even answered it, I perceived it as, that there could only be 2 dads, or some type of stepdad or something like that for some reason. I don't know, maybe if it was the way the question was presented to me, but it made me go into more depth and like want to understand it more. That's why it kind of made me want to choose this project even more. And I think like when you really think about it, it starts at a young age, and that's why like people perceive, like we have to understand the reason why people perceive these words the way they do. And so it kind of starts at a young age, which what I've kind of seen myself. And it starts at a young age where like when we're watching shows and stuff like that, and most of the times the male is always dominant in the situation, whether they're the leader of the team or just always talking the most or centered around that person. And very few shows have like the actual females being smarter and like the males, or not smarter but more dominant than the males. And that just got kind of goes to show how like people always perceiving males as the more dominant and doing the more dominant jobs. So like, and also it like shows through our technology as well. And kids at these ages are starting to become more acquainted with technology at younger ages. And so like things such as like Alexa, for instance, which is an AI, it's a female, and it the point of the AI is to respond to you immediately without like any type of backlash or anything like that. You just immediately do as you ask it to tell you tell it to do. And so if kids at a young age are telling something that they would equate with a woman's voice at a young age, telling it to play this song for me, do this, do that, do this, then it's gonna equate and it's gonna build up along with the shows they're watching, the things that they're taking in at a young age. And I think that's how we kind of like have to get away from that. And there was an article that basically talked about the AI, which was Alexa, and it was pushing towards a more like gender neutral, or like not really sounding like a male or a female. So the product can still do what it needs to do, but not enforce such a biased view, saying like, for instance, like male or female, so that it could show like equal quality of both genders.
So this seems to really only be a problem in the English language, because in the English language, we sort of have a problem with associating a specific gender to a word that has no type of gender associated with it. An example of this is the word doctor. Most people will stereotype males as being a doctor when a female is just as capable and qualified of becoming a doctor as a male is. In a way, this problem is sort of impossible for it to occur within another language because of the way it's set up. An example of this is in Spanish, as most nouns and even some adjectives have male and female versions of them, such as the word el profesor and la profesora, which means male teacher and female teacher in Spanish. And you you really can't just assume something is one gender or another based on the way you're raised or personal opinion and favor. Uh, both genders are equal and have the ability to say all things and become whatever they want.
In the end, after thinking about our question and based on the data we've collected, we've come to the conclusion that gender doesn't affect the way you view gender neutral words. I think it's more of how your society is set up and how you were raised. Because if you if you go somewhere else outside of America, they may believe that men should be the ones serving the women and that women are the more dominant gender. Whereas in really it should be both genders are neutral and both have equal power in all situations. And based on our based on the data we've collected, it proves that here in America, people tend to perceive that males are the more dominant jobs and like do more dominant things based off of our interviews. Because out of all the people we interviewed, all of them gave the same answer, believing that the doctor should be a male and there was no plausible way for it to be a woman until we told them that it was a woman or the boy's mother. And that just shows that really the answer to our question is not how gender affects the view of gender neutral words, but how society and the way we are raised and people we are around affects the way we view gender neutral words.